Okay, let's go through and bust some myths of critical analysis. So, complex sounding techniques are required for high marks. That's one myth. No, that's not true. As long as your technique develops your argument about a theme, it will score well. Okay, so just because you've thrown in a complex sounding technique, if you don't understand what it is, or you're not actually using it appropriately or in a way that actually achieves what you're trying to say it achieves, you will actually lose marks. You need to recount parts of your story to contextualize your argument. No, as I said, you can presume the markers know what you're talking about. A set number of quotes is required to get a band 6. Again, that's certainly not true. You need to include enough evidence to support a detailed argument, and will vary based on your argument. You will know as you write your argument when you've reached a level where you've proven what you've said, okay? But I know I can just, again, sense that someone's asked it, how many quotes would you recommend per body paragraph? It's something I always get asked, okay? And I know I've just said that there is no definitive number, but we all are never happy with that. We all want a definitive answer. So I'm going to say at least 3 to 4 is where you want to be at. 3 to 4 pieces of evidence per body paragraph. Now, each piece of evidence must be only around 7 to 8 words. Okay, I do not ever want to see, or your markers don't want to see, long-winded pieces of evidence. No. Why? 1, because you're letting the text speak for you. You don't want that. You want to speak for the text and give your ideas and arguments on the text. And 2, there's a possibility that you'll miss out on some techniques, that you won't cover some techniques that need to be covered. Okay, and you don't want that. So having a nice succinct quote that best encapsulates what you're trying to say is what you want to aim for. So even though I've said there's no definitive number and it'll depend on your argument, I know that we're never satisfied with that. So I'm going to say 3 to 4 quotes. Okay, another thing is the idea that you should analyze quotes to learn about the author's context. Okay, no, you shouldn't analyze quotes to learn about the author's context. Instead, the text may reflect their context, and you can talk about the context, but you are aiming to argue what the text meaning is. Okay, the only way or the only time you should be bringing in context is to support your argument. Okay, it's not a context study. You're not talking about what happened in their life, and it's not an autobiography. Or a biography, sorry. Only quotes count as evidence? No, as we know now, you must analyze form. Form, if you're thinking, hold on, how do I analyze form though? You will bring in quotes, okay? So if you're looking at setting, bring in an individual quote in regards to setting, and then pick out the micro techniques in that individual quote and talk about how those individual techniques contribute to setting and create a distinct setting, for example. Juxtaposition and contrast are the same technique. Nope, don't use juxtaposition just because it sounds fancier. Juxtaposition is more so when we have 2 things right next to each other. So for example, if we have, let me think on the spot of an example. Okay, let's say we're watching a movie and we know this protagonist is really lonely and isolated and maybe a bit depressed, and they're put in a really crowded room or crowded space where there's a lot of people around, and everyone's really happy and dancing, and I don't know, there's music going on, let's just say. That's juxtaposition, okay? Because we put kind of 2 opposites next to each other. Contrast is different. Contrast is where things are compared or different, yes, but they're not right next to each other. They're kind of like ideas in the text at large that are contrasted. So maybe in the beginning of the text, it will talk about one idea, let's say, loneliness, and then later in the text, it talks about sociability, okay? Obviously, those contrast each other, but they're not happening right next to each other in the same scene as juxtaposition is, okay?